Hey, look, we back at it, man. Another episode. This gonna be number 10. We getting number 10 started. Welcome back to Mic Check. Many conversations. Look, this is a table where we're gonna completely unplug and be very transparent. If anything, man, this is a table where I would even consider it as planting seeds for ourselves, for our kids, for the listeners. And for the future men who'll just hear it out. We want to leave a blueprint. This is not the blueprint. So look, we lead with our perspectives, whether it be something that we've experienced or just something that we're looking forward to kind of experiencing as we continue to grow and grow older. That is what Mic Check is to me. Many conversations. And once again, welcome back to yet another episode. This one, we're going to go ahead and get started with, is your inner child still leading you? I want to pass this one over to my brother Josh, who's going to get us started off with the questions and kind of keep this one rolling forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor over to my man Josh.
Good evening, good morning, good night, afternoon, whatever time you're watching this episode, man. We're going to start it off with the first question. So the first question on the table is, how has your childhood shaped the way you handle relationships today?
I was always taught, respect people until they give you a reason not to, right? Mm-hmm. So where I grew up, man, all you had was your name and your respect. And that's how people judge you. So this upbringing has shaped me to be a bit more guarded naturally, because today there's a lot of fake shit, man. A lot of flawed people, depending on where you are, fake, fluke, whatever you want to call it, man. But it get praised, So I think the lines get blurred. So there's so much acceptance of nonsense that dudes just start confusing what's real or what they can get away with. Plus, everybody's morals aren't the same. Your principles aren't the same. Everybody's got their own differences, right? So what respect means to me might completely mean something different to the next man. So I'm very selective in who I choose to have relationships with. So I think with that upbringing, it's kept me in a guarded space, in that selectiveness, rather, is sometimes not necessarily blocking me, but I think it keeps me in this, again, like I said, guarded phase of like choosing wisely who I connect with and who I open up to, or who I just allow around me.
I can piggyback off of that for sure. I think like when it comes to that, and as we apply to like the inner child, it's kind of like the upbringing from the sense of, don't talk to them strangers, or, be mindful who you're around, and just all of those like little things that you kind of like get taught when you're brought up, but has major impact. And so like Brother Zach said, man, I definitely think I can agree with the standpoint of like, my childhood and how I was brought up was very much similar to that, but just have humility as well, and really appreciate things for what they are. I think it was big, for me, my family, they came from Liberia, West Africa, both sides of my family, and very humble people that migrated to the States during the war. They had a civil war over there. And so, my parents seen a lot, from going to refugee camps, from, all types of things that they've seen and experienced, similar to which you will see like on movies and things like that. They experience in real life situations. And so, they know what could have been, and they know how good, they were blessed for whatever reason to continue to be here. And so they definitely instilled that in us. And I try to just kind of keep the same grace alive when it comes to any relationship that I'm in, whether it's friendship, brotherhood, obviously my marriage right now, because we all, come from somewhere. We all have those different upbringings. And my upbringing doesn't mean that it's right and the other person is wrong. I think we both have whatever that relationship is. We both have a part to play in it. We both have things to give. And so, I think that's how my upbringing applies to like that inner child mentality of where it's like, having an opportunity to, see things for what it is as an adult, but still have those guardrails as well to say like, this doesn't feel okay, or I sense something here to where this person, may not be the best interest for me.
Yeah, man, I think, even to add to it, I feel like my childhood shaped me in a way that I feel as if I can handle relationships in a way that I didn't even realize really until I got older. For me growing up, I learned early that, in a sense, like what love looked like and what it didn't look like. And that's just from, just from seeing it from my mother, my grandparents, and even, my most recent example probably would be my grandmother, my grandfather. My grandfather, he passed away roughly 8 years ago. But to me, that was a visual of love. Like, I seen them go through hardships, and they still stuck it out until the very end, until my grandfather passed away. So I feel like that was my vision or visual of what love looked like. I feel like that some of that, man, it gave me strength, but it also left wounds that that I'm still unlearning. I think we still continue to learn as we continue to get older, and I think it's okay. At least I know it's okay for me to say that I'm still in a learning phase. But because of what I've seen, I feel like I can be protective in relationships. I personally don't like conflict. So that's something I try to avoid in a sense until I feel like at times man, I can be a hothead, and especially like in conflict conversations or some conversations where we just not aligning. So one of the things that I'm learning is actually being able to open up and let that person, air themselves out and respect their decision. Just all in all, just more so just having the lack of conflict hanging in the air. So I try to make sure I open the floor up to anybody. But I think on the flip side, sometimes I struggle with opening up fully. And I think as a man, as a young boy, I learned to keep certain emotions locked in. But now, with tables like this, I think that we're finding that comfortability to be able to kind of like not pour out, but at least kind of loosen some of that pressure and be able to share. All in all, so that's for me, man.
I like that, DB. And just to piggyback off what Zach said, with my perspective, growing up, my dad always taught me, my mom, all a man got is his word. If you say you're gonna do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, growing up being the only child, and this kind of goes into the next question. But I wasn't allowed to go to certain people's houses. You know what I'm saying? My parents were very selective over the relationships I was able to have as a childhood. I wasn't going to such and such house where his mom let him go out and do whatever he wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? At an early age, even though that was a cool kid, you know what I'm saying, there was no supervision. Ain't no telling what would have happened if I would have went over there. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just somewhat having like-minded and being aligned, and we talked about this episodes previous. But if you're gonna be around somebody positive, if you think positive, be around positive-minded people. If you a negative Nancy, then that's the group that you're gonna gravitate to. If you with the dudes is getting money the right way, if you with the get money crew, you know what I'm saying, and that's all y'all talk about. All you and your friends talk about is getting money the right way. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're gonna be. If you out there, you promiscuous, and you're gonna be a hoe, you're gonna be with the hoes, then your friends gonna be hoes. You know what I'm saying? You are the company that you keep.
Yep. No, absolutely. And they even say that if you look around like your circle, you really can find out who this person is based off the 3 people that they keep close to them. I wholeheartedly believe that is true.
Yes.
I mean, I think outside looking in, sometimes you might find that unicorn. You might see all loud chicks and then one quiet chick, and it might be like,
With them quiet
something,
ones.
right? Something is either gravitating you to them, maybe the energy. But even then, I feel like that still speaks loudly in terms of who you keep around as company. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that, Josh.
Slide on to the next question. Do you think your inner child drives your need for validation even as an adult?
That's a good one, bro. I would say absolutely. And look, this is different. I think it's just different perspectives, but I would say yes. I think growing up, man, look, I sent y'all a video this week, Josh, Zach, and Doc. All 3 of you guys sent y'all a video, plus some other fellas, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I can't remember this lady's name, but I'll by the time we do a round robin here, I'll jump back and point her name out. But she ended up speaking about it from a sports analogy in a sense, like as men, as boys, growing up on the basketball court, growing up on the football field, maybe whatever sport you preferred to play in, we got applauded. And from those applauds, it kind of made us play a little bit harder. Maybe wanted us, kind of strive for the next level, the next game, or whatever. You put up 36, look, you getting hella love for doing that. So you already know that the validation is there just from the applause and just from I feel like that same thing kind of stems further into adulthood, bro, but differently. If you're married, sometimes it's good to just maybe hear a thank you or that you appreciate it. And I think that we should separate the difference of being praised versus just getting acknowledged of like as a thank you. Because I'll be honest, man, I feel like, and this is me speaking for me, I like to be seen. But I also like to know that my worth is being appreciated and that my worth is still there. Sometimes if we not getting that acknowledgement, we don't even know if what you're doing, the energy you putting out there is even something that's being appreciated. And look, I'm a cat that I need to know. You got to tell me straightforward. Like, don't have me reading through no bushes. I like straightforward feedback. If it's opportunities, tell me. If it's critical, tell me. If it's good stuff, tell me. Cool. But I'm more interested in the opportunities anyway. And if I notice that the opportunities is not something that I actually enjoy doing, cool, perfect. That means I'm doing that good. Now let me work on this and kind of figure it out from there. So I do think that in a sense, I think that having that as a kid, it does kind of spill over into adulthood just differently, even in the workplace, man.
Yeah.
Hey, DB, I want to put a pin right there because I'm thinking of something in my head. So I think I seen something maybe like 2 years ago. So you remember back in the day when we played Pop Warner or whatever it was for the Boys and Girls Club or something like that, and you sign up for rec league ball, right?
Yeah.
Everybody got a trophy.
Yeah.
Even if you ain't do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Participation trophy. Yeah.
Participation trophy. Nowadays, only the winning team is gonna get a trophy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You see how that kind of goes kind of hand in hand. You know what I'm saying? I just thought about
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think that's I thought it was cool back in the day because that's just what they were doing. But I get the point now. Over time, they started like throwing that out there. Like, you shouldn't just get a participation trophy. You shouldn't just get a trophy for showing up.
Right.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
To an extent, not a trophy, but maybe a certificate. And I say that because, bro, it's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least be recognized that you showed up because
Right.
it ain't easy to just show up, especially your team ass.
Right.
If your team ass, it's hard.
It's hard
to
for
show
that
up,
game,
bro.
bro.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think in a way, give something, but don't give the championship team the same thing that you gonna give to the team that ended up being 0-13. They do not deserve the same kind of recognition.
Yeah, it boils down to that praise versus acknowledgement thing. I think in that situation, in that scenario in general, man, children do need some form of acknowledgement. Children need to know when like you get some kids, since we speaking about children, that'll be like, oh, Uncle Zach, I got good grades. I won't praise it, but I'll acknowledge that you could be getting bad grades. So I appreciate you doing this thing. I think there has to be a difference and a line drawn where we teach our young folks or the people that we mentoring that don't expect to be praised for doing something that you're supposed to do anyway.
Supposed to be doing, bruh. Yes, absolutely.
I will acknowledge that you could have been doing something completely different, but in this situation, in this space, in this household, we don't accept that. Or rather much the societal norms don't accept that. So for you to go to school every day and get perfect attendance, I won't praise you for that. But I'll say, job well done, son.
Absolutely.
Do something exceptional. Do something exceptional, and you should strive to do that. I think that's where, the Part Warner people, I'm glad that whole ordeal has been removed, if it has or has not. But, yeah man.
Exactly.
Acknowledge those folks, but don't praise them.
I got one, actually, because I think that's a good point that you bring up, man. In regards to doing something that you're supposed to be doing, right? I kind of look at it as like, you got Pats. You got Chop. Big shout out to Chop. I talked to Chop today, matter of fact.
Yeah, you did.
Let's say, for example, you walk in the crib and Chop got to eat, right? We already know Chop got to eat, but then you see that, you see your wife, she may drop the food in Chop's bowl. In a sense, that's something that y'all supposed to do, right? As pet parents, like, what do you do in that instance? Because I think that, and kind of just to bring the example to the forefront, right? Because I feel like sometimes those acknowledgments still, even though it's something that you should do, I feel like something in that instance can still be said. But how do you look at those scenarios?
I look at those scenarios, and I think what I'm getting at is it's more so of you want to be acknowledged for doing something that you both know has to be done, like paying the rent, paying the bills. You know what I mean? It's just the idea of, one, you got to know the space and the person that you're around. I think that's point that has to be driven, number one. So to go back to that space, if I know Chop has to be fed, it's not necessarily my job, or it's not necessarily her job. I think we have to collectively be on the same page. And my sense of acknowledgement in that space is her just saying, oh, I took care of that already. Even though it's not my dog, but I love the dog more, probably not so more than her, but I will pour into
it's all good,
the
bro.
shaping
It's
of that dog. You know what I mean? More, I will train it more. I will discipline it more. So when I see her doing something or picking up my weight, rather, I appreciate that. And I
Yeah,
think her
yeah.
acknowledging that I do it all the time is her just giving me that pass. Well, I took care of that already, baby. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily the validation. It's just, I think sometimes you got to be vocal with your spouse or vocal with a
Yeah.
person and just letting them know, like, I can take some of that weight too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think some people just also have to be realistic and understand that just because I'm doing an act of doing that you may always do, whether that's cleaning up the house, washing the car, or paying the bills, just accept that and appreciate it because you know what it takes to put that work in too. You know, so
Absolutely, bro.
there's also a time where when someone does something for you, you have to put yourself in a space of appreciation, self-appreciation, because you can see and you know what it takes for that to be done. So when you can sit back and dwell on like, damn, she did that or he did that for me, I don't even really need you to tell me that you did it. I see you. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
Right.
Respect.
Right. Absolutely.
Respect. Yeah, I definitely think that when it comes to inner child and driving your validation, that's true. It's no cap to that at all. You know, even as grown men, you know, I wouldn't say yearn for. You get to a point to where validation isn't at the forefront, but it's necessary. You know,
Yeah.
it's not what starts the fire, but it's what keeps it going. You know,
Absolutely.
and I think like the maintenance of it and me knowing that this has to be done, but me continuing to choose that for the betterment of our family, for the betterment of, you know, just whatever goal we're trying to accomplish should be recognized. And you know, because it is one argument to say like, well, you're supposed to be doing that. Very, very true. You know, very true. But it's almost like I look at it as like a scoring title versus like an MVP award. You know what I'm saying? Like I can go out and do all of these different things and look great, you know, but I think the difference is it's like for somebody who's deemed an MVP, it's just like I can dabble in like a lot of different things that's going to be impactful for the team. Yes, in my role as a man, I'm supposed to be doing this, but take me out of this space. How impactful would that be if I'm not stepping into that role? And I think that's what a lot of men has to transition to, and that's the difference. So that's why I said at a grown man stage, I don't necessarily yearn for the validation like I did when I was a young boy. You know, I wanted to be seen. I wanted to feel that. Like, think, you know, y'all made the analogy as well of like, you know, even for our kids, or as we were brought up, you know, that's what we received. You know, I can't, as I'm thinking about it, I can't even tell you how many times like I just second nature just tell my daughter good job every single day. Like and if I really think about it, it's just like all of the things that she does, or whether she just kind of like says a word that she couldn't say the day before, or she's pronouncing it more like clearly now and things like that. All of that keeps her motivated and to continue to learn. It's just like I'm doing something
Yes.
right. And so we've taken that at that young stage, and as an adult at this point, yes, that urge is still there, but I know that it's a different role and responsibility that I'm in now. It's a lot more of individuals who are dependent on me to perform. And so when you take the magnitude and the priority level of it all, yes, it's what I'm supposed to do. But if you look at the percentage, not a lot of men are doing it. And so
Right,
to be
right.
recognized in a way to where, again, it doesn't necessarily start my fire. I don't need people to motivate me per se. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I can self motivate myself. It's just to maintain, you know, that motivation to continue on, because some days, you know, you do have that feeling of like, I know this got to be done, but I don't feel it today, man. It's not going to get done. It's just not going to.
Right.
And sometimes that level of appreciation, all the things that we talked about, can definitely keep you going, even in the midst of like where you feel, you know, like you're falling short a little bit.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, man, in terms of just getting that validation as a kid. Today, my daughter, she is in gymnastics. And in gymnastics, they have 3 bells inside the building. And with those bells, it's like anytime they do something that's like pretty much like a 3-star, 3 out of 3 star, their coach say, hey, go ring the bell. And when they ring the bell, everybody in the audience will clap.
Going crazy. Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, that's so dope. And again, it makes them want to go back out there and perform at the next event even better than they did with the last one, just so that way they can ring the bell again. So usually, even when she comes to the crib, I'll be like, yo, how many times you rung the bell today? She'll be like, twice. And I'm like, word. You gonna beat it tomorrow? You gonna beat it next week? And she'll be like, yep. And I'm like, all right, bet. So man, I think it's just instilled and hopefully, I would say hopefully as they continue to get older, or just kids of today continue to get older, hopefully they find a way to get the validation one way or another. Hopefully they don't yearn for it,
Right.
but hopefully they get it in a way where they at least feel, fulfilled.
Absolutely. That's what's up,
And I,
by the way.
I think, and that's us as men, black men, and to women out there listening, you can seek validation from not just men, but some of the older women that you would consider a mentor. You don't have to always seek the validation, because we know what the world wants you to portray yourself as far as validation. We see it on social media all the time. You know what I'm saying? Same thing for guys. It's the same as for women. We don't. You got all your little different stuff. A plastic body. You know what I'm saying? There's still people out here that likes a natural body. Seeking that validation, and it's okay for having somebody that you look up to, or somebody in your age bracket, or some of that nature, to like tell you, like, hey, that's okay. It's okay to be. You don't gotta look like that girl. You don't gotta go to Miami and get that baby BBL, or go to Puerto Rico and go to, you know what I'm saying? There's somebody out there that'll like you for the way you look now.
Absolutely.
Guys, it's okay with being short. You don't gotta go to Puerto Rico to get that surgery to be 6 foot. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, weak, because
Exactly.
I seen that
All his
joke,
life.
bro. Yeah, crazy. They realize be out there doing that.
Yeah, I mean, you got
That's
abs.
that's like a year recovery.
It
Yeah.
is.
Do you think your inner child pushes you to chase success, or to avoid repeating the past disappointments?
Man, I think a little bit of both. For me, I think there's a side of me to where, like we talked about in the last question, a lot of us grew up in that sports background. Myself, like it was every weekend I was doing something, sports related. And that level of, success, or just the ambition for success, grew at that stage. The level of, competition and, wanting to be the best at my craft, it started at that point. And so that's what success looks like for me. Like, if I am the best version of myself in whatever I'm doing, if I'm competing at a high level, against my peers, and I'm being recognized and respected for what I bring to the table, that's success for me. And so I think at an early age, that inner child that still exists in me, definitely still pushing me to chase that success in what makes sense for my life right now. And so, for me, like, I'm a manager, but, being a senior manager is what I'm pushing for. That level of I guess just accomplishment in itself, would mean a lot to me. And so that's what I was saying in regards to that. On the second end of that, to avoid repeating past disappointments, I could definitely see that too. There's a lot of things to where, I look back on, man, and I'd be like, dang, had I done X, I probably, who knows what I would have did with Y. And if whether it's in the sports realm, whether it's just in other decisions that I've made, in the early developmental stage, I don't like have those thoughts a lot, but there are times where me and a couple guys who I went to high school with, or who I competed against, we always kind of go back and trying to talk about the good old days in that respect, and some of the things that we wish could have happened that just didn't, or if we did X, Y, Z, what the result would have been. And so I do have that as well, because now, making it more practical for me, like, in my younger stage, I didn't want to hit the gym at all. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, yo, I got it. This is God-given talent. I'm good. Until you get to a collegiate level, for example, you can bypass that depending on what school you're going to and your competition. But, even in high school, you can see some of the weaknesses. And so for something like basketball, or even soccer for that respect, when I went to college, bro, you can really see when we had to really be in the gym, like, wee hours of the morning, and then have to go to 8 a.m. classes, and then, do what we had to do throughout the day. And then in the evening, go back to the gym, and then all of that stuff in that routine, it was overwhelming, for me. And so, like, I feel like knowing that, and I could still say that's an inner child stage of my life. Knowing that now, I dare not be unprepared for a situation like, for example, my health or just anything I aspire to be in. And so to answer that question, man, I think it's a little bit of both. It definitely impacts a little bit of both for me for those examples I gave.
I think I would have to agree in terms of it being both. It's funny because I think in a sense, in the right settings, I'm a quiet, laid back, humble guy. But I think that's because I know that if I ever have to, I'm a shit talker too. And not in the way of like, not in the way of like, I got a lot to say, but I'm finna tell you, like, I have a little bit to say that's probably gonna hit hard.
Right.
I think for me as a kid, bro, it kind of stems back probably to some of the things that people said that you can't do. And I'm one to defy the odds. I'm one to definitely try to defy the odds. Look, I even think just being in this space, it's funny because I try my best to pull the good out of everything, right? The fact that we even went to college, I look at that, I'm like, bro, we shouldn't even be here. The fact that we graduated from college, I'm like, bro, we shouldn't be here. The fact that I ended up getting a job right out of college and something that I actually enjoyed and wanted to do, we shouldn't even be here. And where I am today, moving from the East Coast to Denver, moving from Denver to Texas, I'm like, bro, ideally, I shouldn't even be here. So I try my best to like take it. But at the same time, bro, I got so much built up where I'm like, I feel like I'm good. But I feel like this chase did probably start as a kid, even playing like football. I was a quarterback of my high school football team. And we had a fire record. Now, mind you, let me go back. This was definitely JV, but I was a passer. I was not a runner. If y'all know me, I'm not fast. So we were solid, man. The record was good, but that was enough for me to just say, well, we won't ass, right? We won't garbage. So I got something in the bag, and then somebody say, yo, you ain't even a good coach. We was 7-3. We was good. We was 7-3. So it's like if you ever get to that point of having to like test me, I'm a shit talk back. I'm good, at least for the beginning. I don't do a lot of shit talking though.
So how was varsity?
But even varsity, I didn't even play, bro. It was so much going on. Not to mention I had to jump into the workforce.
I got you.
For the family, stuff like that. So we had to bring the men twin. We both ended up getting a job, and I left football in high school senior year. But man, you talking about like just and even up to now, the job. I know I ain't gonna talk about my job on this platform, but my job in a sense, and even being a father, being married for seven years. That alone, bro, is enough to have in the bag to be like, bro, I got enough to shit talk if I needed to.
Right.
So in a sense, yes, bro, I do think that my inner child kind of still pushes me to success because. In a sense, it's almost like you running to something that you already have a grip of, but you want more. You want to continue to go, Yes. I see that I'm already successful, bro, but I still want more. So it's almost like, bro, you figure out what you want to get, and then you might kind of use that as a piece of success. But also it goes back to reaching out for something that you don't really know what you're reaching for. But if you do reach and you get turned down, that's where the disappointment comes from. I think that the same thing is there. It's like applying for a job. When you get that rejection letter, when it's just me, I'm like, bro, how you ain't even called me in for an interview? Like you need to see my stats. Like you should at least have me in there.
Right.
Yeah. And so I feel like the disappointment can potentially kick in. I think that's when my inner child kicks in too. I tend to do that when it's just me. And especially the disappointment piece, but I will share my successes and whatnot. But again, it's more just ammunition for me, bro. It's not anything that I'm gonna go out and just proactively blurt out. But inside, definitely a yes.
Respect.
I had to piggyback off you, man. I think the disappointment piece definitely from my inner child was essentially holding me back. So in my season of growth, I've channeled what I consider those childish ways of my past to avoid repeating disappointment. My inner child is, wasn't full of disappointment, but, it's I think it can get in the way of the idea of chasing success, right? So if you allow this constant thing that you've struggled with in your childhood or this roadblock you've hit, I think it's consistently put me in a space of, not being able to grow. So I think in this season of growth, man, I've definitely learned how to get away from those places and channel those things to put myself in a space of just continuing to evolve, man. I think you hit on that, like where you may reach a point where it's like, damn, I didn't even get a chance to get the interview, but you sent me an email saying I was one of the top candidates. Like, so how do you not call me at least? You know, I used to let that block me from sometimes applying to something that may potentially be a better situation. But that was the old me, you know. So I've had to learn how to get fuel from that disappointment. I think the childish me would sulk in that disappointment, would beat myself up, would question myself, would put me in a space of saying, am I good enough? You know, it'll put you in that space of questioning you. But it's something that you got to outgrow, man. I think it's something that'll channel us. You know, it comes back and haunts you every now and then. It haunts you in your marriage, haunts you as a parent. You know, it haunts you when you look in yourself in the mirror. But, you know, sometimes you got to learn how to outgrow that. And I think I've grown from that for sure.
That's so critical. That's so critical, Zach, that you said that, bro, in terms of like the disappointment. It's a disappointment at that time, but how many things can we look back on right now? And I ain't even talking about job wise. I'm talking about, I mean, it could be jobs, it could be a vehicle, it could be a trip, a moment that you know, with the family, going somewhere. It could be a relationship with the ladies. I mean, it's a few things I can think back on. I'm like, boy, that was God.
Yeah. I'm so glad.
I'm glad that I was.
Bro.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
No, not to cut you off. I'm just so glad you said that, because that's where my mind was going with this. Of like, some of my disappointments didn't even come as like a failure or an L. It came in the form of a blessing, but I was still very much disappointed on how I received it, because, you know, I knew I shouldn't have been at that place at that time. I knew I shouldn't have done whatever it is that I ain't had no business doing, you know, and it was only by and through the grace of God, bro, that I seen it through. And, you know, you think about those crazy, spooky college nights when we got back on campus, and we thinking about it the next day, and it's just like, man, I don't know how. Like, and if you got to start your sentence off with that, bro, it's just like, man, come on, dog. And
that Lincoln.
if we being honest, we have one too many that we probably should have, bro. And so,
absolutely,
you know, to what you were saying, bro, I that's where my mind went with it, of just like the disappointments I have that I can sometimes think back to didn't always come in the form of like a L. I was actually blessed, and it's just like, hey, that's your warning signal, my man's. You gotta get this together, bro. And that
absolutely,
child,
man.
you gotta kind of like be able to tap into that and say, okay, lesson learned. You know, as a grown man now, I know not to repeat that same offense.
Absolutely, man. Everything is a learning lesson, bro. I gotta give God the glory on that one, man.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing, shout out to Big G. I think the biggest thing, man, is that you have to understand that doors are going to close. That's one.
Right.
Those may look like disappointments, but I think even like just chatting with you three in terms of where you guys are with careers, with your personal lives, and you know, it's so many things that when I hear Josh, I think most recently, you know, with your mom's going through her surgery and whatnot, bro, that's a blessing in terms of being able to be by her side, being able to still be there with your mom and your pops, you know, and Doc, you still got the family growing, and you know, and Zach, you flourishing, bro. And when I say I step back and I be like, we do talk about our opportunities. Don't get me wrong, along the way of us just discussing normal day to day, but this set us up in such a great way in terms of like just for the now and going forward that I continue to give him the honor every day, bro. And I wanted to be voicious about that because I think one of the biggest things is I don't think that we talk about God enough and especially in our generation. No. So every single day, I will say that I speak to God, man, and I thank Him. I thank Him for the good and the bad. Yeah. And I think that even goes back to our disappointments and our successes. But the biggest thing, man, is that you know a door closes, but so many more open later on that we stepped into, and then look where we are today. So. I'm gonna go ahead and get off the high horse, man. But definitely a shout out to Big G on that one.
Shout out to Big G. Nah, that's definitely dope, bro.
Get back off of what we was talking about earlier, talking about disappointments, man. I remember back in middle school, I played football. I played quarterback too, DB in middle school.
Word.
And it was great, man. You know what I'm saying? My problem was I couldn't remember all the plays. So I remember coach would give out something, and I'll get under the center. And I look back at my running back and my fullback. I'm like, hey, which one of y'all getting the ball? You know what I'm saying? So I know who pitching to, you know. And then it came around, all the heavy hitters and stuff on the football team was basketball players. So I won't never forget. I tried out for the basketball team at Greenwood Middle School, and I ain't make it. Man, I was sick. Man, I came home. Coach Chasen. Shout out to Coach Benjamin Chasen, man. And they put it out there on the outside of the gym. You know what I'm saying? Everybody run up there, and then I think it was like a 12, 13-man roster. And I went up there. You know what I'm saying? But then I go to high school, and I make the JV team. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I'm like, dang, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
hey,
you just got to
disappointment and then the door opening, bro.
Correct, bro. You just got to keep driving, man. To our listeners out there, you got to keep driving. One door closed is going to possibly be another door open, man.
Absolutely. Jordan didn't make his high school team.
Yeah.
I think it was his first year.
I want
he make it.
I want Michael Jordan, but yes. And the coach
call that boy radio on the football field.
And the coach that cut him, man, you know what I'm saying? Look what drove that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Michael is the greatest player of all time. You know what I'm saying?
Arguably.
Arguably, right? Nah, sometimes it's a door that wasn't meant to be open, man. Essentially, bro.
Yes.
Like, sometimes it's like, people, in this case, Big G, saving us from ourselves, of being so ambitious and being so anxious and, lacking patience and wisdom. All the signs was there as you leading on to that door before you open it until something big has to happen to where it's just like, okay, I got to turn you around the other side to get back on track somehow. And this is the only way I know how to do it, whether it's in a disappointment of not making the team or, in other aspects of life, man, for folks who's watching this and whatever that blank is in the middle of this that applies to you. That's what I would say, man. Sometimes like those doors not supposed to be open. Sometimes
absolutely
we do it to ourselves of walking our own path, and then doing that, it doesn't align, with the path and the purpose that he has for us. And so, ultimately, my grandmother would say, my late grandmother, those who can't hear will feel. Sometimes, when you miss those signs and everything else, you're going to feel it in some kind of capacity to which it didn't have to be that way. But due to, the choices that we made, it deemed to be so. And so what do you take from that? Well, how do you go from there? How do you bounce back? How do you get back on track and walk in your purpose? And I think that's the biggest takeaway, not the loss in itself and how it made you feel, but the bounce back of it and getting back aligned is what is most important, essentially.
Hey, Doc, can you repeat that for me, bro?
Go ahead.
My bad. The quote from your grandma, that was fire, bro.
Those who can't hear will feel, like we talked about, don't touch that. All right, now it's on hot. Don't touch it.
Right.
Go on to touch
you
it.
Gonna feel it.
You hear me? You're gonna feel it. And
right.
And so that's that big tada moment sometimes that I think happens in our lives, to where all the signs was there. We heard it before. We observed it. We seen different things play out of the movie, and we want to create our own script. We want to be producers and directors out there, and it's like, it ain't about
and
us.
You're not in control, bro.
You're not in control.
And again, when you talk about control, we talk about his analogy with the basketball team. One man, somebody once said, a man can plan everything to the finest point, and then God laughs. Because you can plan and prepare yourself for everything, but he going to tell you and put you where you need to be.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Every time.
Every single time, bro.
Make a plan. Yeah, that's it.
Make a plan.
Right. That's it.
That we're not saying don't prepare, because piss poor preparation. We can get into all the P's. But listen,
19 feet.
You can plan and plan and plan, but God will laugh. But always keep yourself in the realm of putting yourself in a position, because when your time comes, you got to be ready.
You got to show up.
Absolutely.
You got to show up. For sure. That's dope, fellas.
Hey, even before we jumped in, God done set me down so many times, bruh. Hey, one was when I was hooping and I ruptured my Achilles a couple years ago, and I was like, I had everything planned out. My daughter was on the way. You talking about a disappointment? My daughter was roughly 6 months until born, roughly. And set me down, bro. And again, the disappointment itself, but then the success came right after. My daughter she ended up born healthy, a healthy big baby.
Yeah.
And I was back to running. Me and Zach was running back on the Nike app within 8 months after that. And I was told it was a 12-month recovery. So, man, again, when you think the plans is yours, boy, he will find a way to tell you, bro, sit down, dog. This is not you. It's me.
Don't get the glory somehow. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the last question for tonight, fellas, If your inner child could sit across from you now, what would they thank you for, and what would they comfort you about?
Man, I think what my inner child would thank me for. Not settling for the status quo. I think they'll thank me for that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a you know a street guy by any means. I hung around a lot of them though. I was in places where I shouldn't have been. And I think even the covering from those instances was alive and well in those situations. I was always around the guys, but they always looked out for me, just based on my authenticity, I guess, or whatever I brought to their lives that, they felt the need to do that. And I say all that because, um, you know, like I said, it's definitely situations where I feel like I was in maybe right places at the wrong time or just flat out wrong place at the wrong time. And I was covered and folks intervened on my behalf. And, I think with getting that early learning or getting that early exposure, I think my inner child would thank me from not settling for that, not looking at that as my norm for my life, not knocking anybody that lives that life, do your thing. I think, with my upbringing, other people upbringings and things like that, it differs. And life trauma and everything else places people in situations to where they, feel the need to act on certain things. With me and what I experienced in my life, it taught me that I didn't want that for myself. I didn't want that to be my
Mm-hmm.
future. That's not something that I was brought up in. And so, not even just that, that's just one example, but, just who I am today, I feel like I had to walk my own path to a certain degree, but also embrace, the perspective of folks around me too, and put myself in situations and environments, that I was going to meet other brothers as well. I have two sisters. I went to college not knowing anything about fraternities or Greek life or anything like that. Now I'm in a brotherhood in a deeper sense. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I've been able and privileged to meet brothers, lifetime brothers, to where I know that there isn't going to be any place that I go, that I wouldn't have that level of wisdom around me. And so ultimately, man, I would say walking my own path. In my immediate family, Greek life wasn't something that happened, and so I took that path, for myself because that's what I felt like, I wanted my life to be like. So I would say being resilient and not following the status quo, but leading my own path to a certain extent would be what they would thank me for. What they'll confront me about, that's always tough, man, to think about yourself in a negative connotation and, kind of like relive some of those things that you bury in a closet, right? I don't want, to relive again. But being real, man, what I would say confront me about was just, maybe people that I might have hurt along the way, whether it was intentional or not, but knowing to some degree that this could be a repercussion and I still acting on those decisions and things like that. I would say that that's one thing. And then also too, man, I think in certain instances, I by no means am I disappointed with life now. I love my life. I love the place and positions that I'm in. But I do think that there are things, in my past that I could have acted on at an early stage to put me in a better position now, to where it was something based on fear or something based off of, a fear of failure or a fear of whatever the case may be, that I was incompetent or I wasn't worthy of that I didn't act on, man, and that I shied away from the moment. And I think, like, ultimately, with the person who I am now, the person and the father who I'm going to teach my kids, not to shy away from those moments, but similar to what we talked about of like being prepared and making sure that when that moment comes, you embrace it. I think my inner child to some degree lacked that. I was very big on validation from other people and lacked self motivation and all of those things. Whether it may look that I did, I definitely feel like there are certain situations to where I could have probably utilized that had I had those type of characteristics. Who knows? Kanye would say that, I guess we'll never know. That type of thing. And so with that, yeah, that's what I would say as far as what it will thank me for, and then what, maybe a little bit of confrontation if my inner child was to sit across from me.
Yeah, man. I have to piggyback off of you, man. I mean, I too come from a space of wondering how I made it here.
Yeah.
You know, I too come from a space where I've been in places where there's nobody but the big G that got me out of there. I too have come from all of those places of hardship where, my inner child would sit across from me and say, job well done, right? But I think my inner child will confront me in that same sentence of saying job well done and saying, you're a little bit too comfortable, brother. You got a little bit more to do. Stay out of that realm of comfort right now, because we all reach a point where we want to acknowledge our successes. We all reach a point where we give ourselves a pat on the back. And I think that's fine. But I think personally, myself, the space that I'm in right now, I'm a little bit comfortable. And my inner child will look at me and say, all right, you got your water break, bro. Get back out there.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's dope, bro.
Facts.
I think for me, man, in terms of the thank you, what would my inner child thank me for? I think my inner child would probably thank me for using my past to make my future brighter. I don't think I could even say it any better than what you guys have already, in terms of how you put it. I think, man, and I need to stop comparing too. I'll say that. I think that my upbringing has motivated me to do things differently for myself now and for my kids. One of the things that I used to harp on was my kids will never see a time that their parents, well, at least right now they haven't, and I don't think they will, but see a time that we have a hard time in general. They won't see it, at least. But it was clear as day for me when I was a kid that we were having a rough time. Even being in a two-story home in general, being in Texas, and Texas has majority brick homes, but being in a two-story brick home is one, bro, that I took so seriously, because I'm like, I've never had this growing up. So for me, it's almost like, just like Zach said, it's almost like, dang, bro, you comfortable where you are because you've never really seen this before. Right. But all in all, man, I think the biggest thing that my younger self, my inner child would thank me for sitting across the table would be, thank you for using your past to brighten your future, and not letting it get in the way or harm you. I think if anybody has seen this from Richmond, growing up in Creighton Court, for example, growing up on the north side of Highland Park in Richmond, was one that I feel like you could either still be there or you probably wouldn't have even made it out of there. Yeah. And I think using that, bro, and knowing that it's like a realist thing that's going on. Like, there are hoods. My kids don't have to see that, though, thankfully. And by God's grace, I hope that we can continue to live that way. But they don't have to live in the hood like I did growing up. But I think seeing that kind of motivated me to not go back there or not have my kids there, in a sense. So yeah, so using my past to brighten the future. Man, to confront me about, I think the thing that my inner child will confront me about is, I'm gonna put quotation marks around this, but you are not them and they are not you, is one thing that I think my inner child will confront me about. And not specific to people, even my kids, but in a realm of people, everybody don't have the mentality that you have. Everybody doesn't open up a door to express themselves like you do. Everybody doesn't. A lot of people can't relate to you. Right. But also, I think that grace that you have with people don't necessarily have that for you. And so I think that looking at it that way, and I feel like I do that often enough where I'm like, oh, well, shit, I'm nice, I'm good, the people look welcoming. Let me go say what's up. But they're not like you, bro. And I think that could be a negative or a positive, right? But also going back to my kids, they are not you either. You're not them, they're not you. I caught myself many times comparing my story to my kids, and sometimes I'll tell my kids, like, bro, growing up, the food options, you gonna eat what your mom make you, in a sense. Like, if you don't eat it, then you just gonna starve for the night.
You ain't eating.
But no word, and I will say that it's changed a lot. It's society though, and it might be us too. I tell my wife all the time, like, yo, we mess some kids up. But I think any parent can say that. But they're not me, bro, and I'm not them. My mom gave me everything she could. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's only fair for me to do the same thing for my kids in terms of giving them everything I can. And some of it is like, do I think that I should have gotten it when I was a kid. Absolutely, but it's just my mom didn't have the access to it. So one, don't feel horrible about giving your kids things that they want because you can do it. Again, I think each one of our parents would have done the same if they were, if we were younger. Different society, and I try my best not to compare my kids to how I grew up. Coming up it was the funds was a little tight when we was growing up. It was 5 of us though, respectfully. But yeah, I think that just also knowing that, like, bro, stop comparing your kids, stop comparing people to who you were and who you are, because they are not you and you are not them.
That's what's up, DB. I would have to piggyback off of what you said, man. Staying the course. I feel like as a child, I was the only child, and I grew up in a trailer park. And I find myself getting in age and having a little bit of coins in my pocket now. Sometimes I find myself looking down on people that trade in the trailer park, but I came from that same place. But I think we get it misconstrued because nowadays we see people staying in trailer parks, but they got a BMW parked outside.
Absolutely.
Or they got a Mercedes Benz parked outside of a trailer. And I'm like, man, your priorities are messed up. So I feel like, my inner child would say, despite not small beginnings, because it's just me, my mom, and my dad. So I don't have no brothers or sisters like that. I was the child that was envious after going home after a church service because everybody else got to go home with their brothers and sisters, and it was just me by myself. So as a child, that really, I wanted somebody to go home and play with, but I didn't have nobody. You know what I'm saying? My parents, they made dinner or whatnot, then it was just me. I'm either in there on the game or playing with my toys. I was the kid's house that everybody would come over because I was the only child, spoiled, and everybody want to come over and play the new game system or whatever the case may be.
Right.
In hindsight, not knowing that, I was that only child that wanted to go hang with somebody else because I didn't have nobody else. It was just me. So I definitely think, just by myself, learning to be by myself, and it's okay to be by yourself. As far as the comfort, the conflict, just like Zach said, just not being complacent with where you're at right now and just keep on driving and making those strides to be better.
Absolutely. Hey, Josh, let me give you your flowers, bro, because I feel like that might have actually been something that kind of fed you to where you are today. And I say that in a way of saying, look, the reason I even chose, I selected, I ain't gonna say I chose, but I selected and I had in mind 3 guys for this podcast. And I told each one of you guys your reasons, but Josh's reason is because of how expressive he is. And anytime you look at Josh's Instagram, his story, I would say I lived through this guy. And the fact that he's a single, the only child, I think is pretty dope. The fact that every time this man posts a story, he posting somebody that I've never seen before almost every single time. This dude has like limitless friends, bro, and I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah,
that speaks volumes. In a way to me, saying that, bro, you could drop into any setting, and I've seen this a few times. You could drop into any setting, and I think you've used that in your childhood to kind of make that a strength of yours as you got older. I know for me, bro, I can't do the outside that much in terms of like people, and I really like to have one person with me. But bro, that means that you can move by yourself. I think that's a superpower in itself, bro. So that's fire that you can do that, because a lot of people need that support, including myself, when I go places at times. But it's dope that you can actually go somewhere and make friends super easy, and you introduce us to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Little did you know. So no, just all in all, man, I hope you look at the positive piece of that. Now, I feel like that would be something that your inner self would probably thank you for today, in terms of just kind of scoping yourself and rounding yourself out to the man that you are today, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it, bro. Much love, man.
Yeah, don't cry in the car. I ain't give you no more compliments in September, goddamn.
Hey, man.
But nah, that's love, bro.
Absolutely, man.
But I think that's all the questions, fellas.
Yet another one, man. definitely a good conversation. I feel like each one of our conversations, we could definitely continue to expound. I know it's a few things I could have added to it and I wanted to, but I was like, nah. And just, with the respect of time, we will go ahead and wrap this thing up. But yet another one, mic check, many conversations. What is many conversations to me? It's a platform. We could be transparent. We could be ourselves. I know earlier I even stated that it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for somebody, but you have your own. And I think that, hearing some of our stories and how we'll continue to unravel that carpet for ourselves as we continue to get older. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to make it a very open forum. Hopefully we can hear some feedback from you guys that are watching, listening, and we're looking forward to getting your questions aired here so that we can get those answered as well. But look, all in all, I want to pass to my man Doc on this one and close it out with, what is mic check to you?
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. Mic check is really just a place, for vulnerability, really a place for, kind of like the Planet Fitness mantra of like no judgment zone, if you will. It's like, it's one of those things, man, of like, we are men that don't have it figured out, but we are trying, to just take stabs at it, man, and just kind of like layer this thing back like an onion. And I think that's what mic check is for any, one who, can put themselves in these positions and, aspiring to do well in life, but life is life, or, just the things that make up a man, you're struggling with hitting milestones, and there are great things that's happening in your life, but things are moving at a fast pace and you can't adjust. All of those things are real. And, a lot of it, mainly all of it, is not things that we're taught, like in the school systems and all of those things. You gotta learn it on the fly. And you got to hope that you have people in your corner that'll help you through those hard times. And that's what mic check is, whether it's many or whether it's just one, we're just aspiring to use some of our, not expertise, but just real life, transparent situations, to try to, meet somebody where they're at and let them know that they're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Hey, with that, fellas, I appreciate y'all. Yet another good one. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And we checking out of here.
Yes,
mic
sir.
check, y'all.
Another one in the books. Y'all take care, man.
Number 10, baby. Number 10.